Hi everyone. Welcome to our channel. Begin your journey. Douglas Macgregor expresses concerns about a potential broader conflict involving Israel. According to reports from the Times of Israel, President Biden has supposedly reassured Prime Minister Netanyahu that the United States would commit air power and other forces in the event of a Hezbollah attack in the north, with the intention of easing the burden on Israel dealing with multiple fronts. However, Macgregor suggests that such commitments mirror the situation in 1914, when the First World War escalated from a regional conflict to a world war. This raises concerns about the possibility of a larger scale and more widespread conflict. Drawing from historical context, Macgregor points out a conversation related to Trotsky underlining a perceived willingness of the American public to accept statements from Washington without scrutiny. He discredits President Biden's statements, labeling them as untruthful, and critiques the portrayal of a significant democracy struggle as divorced from actual events. Macgregor deems this narrative as absurd, attributing Biden's words to a scripted delivery by his handlers. Certainly, the key issue here is that he's transforming what should be a local conflict into a regional one. Our current presence exacerbates this situation. The Turkish Navy is currently engaged in exercises near Cyprus, and Turkish armed forces are discreetly mobilizing, monitoring our actions. Unfortunately, we've given Israel the go-ahead to act without considering the broader regional balance, potentially harming its own interests. At this juncture, it's unclear what actions can be taken. Essentially, he's echoing George Bush's 2001 speech, adopting a stance of you're either with us or against us. As I mentioned before, practicing the economy of the enemy. George Bush Sr. in 1990 worked to isolate Iraq before confronting it and our approach to Hamas. There has been a lack of effort to isolate the group. Instead, our actions have inadvertently garnered more support for them, putting us in a position of playing catch-up. Unfortunately, these efforts, including Antony Blinken's tour around the country, have not yielded positive results and may have exacerbated the situation. It seems challenging to halt the current trajectory, and the pressing question is when the regional players such as Iranians, Saudis, Iraqis, Syrians, Lebanon, and Egypt will become involved. The entire region is closely monitoring the situation, not out of a desire for a large-scale war, but due to shared concerns. Antony Blinken's identification as Jewish in his interactions may not resonate well, especially considering the broader Muslim perspective. The Israeli government appears to be losing the public relations battle, given the extensive casualties in Gaza, particularly among children. Regardless of the justifications, causing harm to civilians doesn't contribute positively to their cause. The lack of action to address these challenges could be facilitating the gathering of opponents without any intervention to prevent it. We've recently taken down a Turkish unmanned aircraft, and that move could potentially escalate into a full-blown war. Once engaged in conflict with the Turks, it's likely to be a protracted and intense struggle. My history between Israel and Turkey is marred by deep-seated animosity, particularly stemming from a 2008 incident when Israeli forces intercepted a ship carrying humanitarian aid for Gaza, resulting in the deaths of Turkish citizens. This event has left a lasting mark on the relationship with strong contempt and hatred for Israelis among the Turks. Erdogan, the Turkish leader, has emphasized his Muslim perspective on the situation, highlighting the significance of understanding the regional dynamics through the lens of Islam. Prime Minister Netanyahu should take this into consideration. The recent move by President Biden designating Iran, Russia, and China as enemies is reminiscent of a similar declaration in 2001 that set off 2 decades of what many consider wasteful, counterproductive warfare, resulting in significant human and financial costs. Our question now is, where are we heading? Given these developments, the Israeli military leaders I'm acquainted with are well versed in the challenges of urban warfare. Having grappled with its complexities in southern Lebanon and faced some harrowing experiences, they understand the intricacies involved all too well and are not eager to repeat such endeavors. Every effort is being made to meticulously prepare the battlefield, ensuring that the troops entering it receive comprehensive support in terms of intelligence, engineering, and technology. However, let's be candid, Your Honor. Despite these preparations, The reality is that much of it becomes inconsequential when navigating through the debris of a war-torn urban environment. A glance at Gaza, from what I've observed, resembles the devastation witnessed in Dresden in 1940. Maneuvering through ruins inherently favors the defending side, and the defenders in this case are expected to fight tenaciously until the very end. I would be surprised if their commitment didn't resemble the resolute stance of the Imperial Japanese Army. He believes that a combination of a blockade, starvation, misery, and Israeli attacks will cripple Hamas. However, he overlooks the fact that Hamas is not merely a group of well-armed fanatics willing to sacrifice themselves to annihilate Israel. It's an ideology. It's worth recalling that this individual played a role in supporting and strengthening Hamas, initially hoping to manipulate Palestinian factions in the West Bank against Gaza. While such actions are not unprecedented, the current approach seems unlikely to succeed. Instead, it has managed to unite the entire Muslim world in the region against him. His adversaries possess a considerable force, with around 100,000 fighters, along with thousands, potentially 140,000, of rockets and missiles, 40,000 of which are accurate and highly lethal. I doubt there will be a need for parachuting into Israel. If they decide to bring the Marines ashore, they have various watercraft options available. However, our track record with such operations in the region is not reassuring, and it's highly likely that we will incur losses. The fate of the vessels assembled offshore is uncertain, especially considering the vulnerability of surface combatant ships. As evident from our experiences in Ukraine, surface vessels are easily detectable and susceptible to hits leading to anticipated damage. A fundamental question here is why. Why are we pursuing this course of action? Instead of opting for containment, why not convene a conference of major powers to collaboratively address and find a solution to the situation? It's perplexing to understand the rationale behind pushing for a regional war, one that seems almost inevitable once we become a co-belligerent. A lack of clarity on how Israel stands to benefit from such a scenario raises significant concerns. He resides in a realm that doesn't align with reality, immersed in a web of alliances that he perceives as safeguarding us. However, these entangling alliances pose a significant threat to all of us. Small nations, be it Ukraine, Israel, or any other, inherently seek to capitalize on American power, be it economic, political, diplomatic, or military. Presently, we find ourselves in a situation where the smaller entities dictate the course of action with the proverbial tail wagging. The big dog, the significant power represented by the big dog, is directed wherever these states deem fit. I anticipate Russian involvement, but not immediately. The Russians are likely to observe closely how we handle the situation with Turkey. If we find ourselves in a direct conflict with the Turks, the Russians may lean towards supporting Turkey, though they have no interest in engaging in a direct confrontation with us. While there's a growing sentiment of animosity in the region, not many are eager to go to war with the United States. Biden's approach seems to be coming from a less nuanced understanding of international diplomacy. It's as if he perceives the current situation not as 1991, but rather as 1941. The notion of the indispensable nation, coined by Madeleine Albright and echoed by figures like Condoleezza Rice, claiming American values are universal, is problematic. The reality is more nuanced through such sweeping generalizations. Cultural diversity is often overlooked in these discussions, and the importance of respecting other cultures and embracing differences is sidelined. A prevailing narrative tends to be overly simplistic, portraying things as either black or white.